Hello, I didn't see you there. So I've just spent the last 7 days using the Steam Deck as my only gaming device, and I've got some things to say about it. I wanted to answer a question that quite a few people seem to have. Can the Steam Deck actually replace your games console? I think a lot of us who buy gaming consoles, handhelds, often have the same question. Am I actually going to use it? So this week was a proper test, and to be honest, this thing here on day one showed me what it was all about. Day one was all about getting myself out of the creature comfort zone. So the last few weeks I've been spending a lot of time playing on Battlefield, getting sessions in, and I've been gaming quite heavily on the PS5 Pro. By just using the Steam Deck for 7 days, I was really going to test myself. So to get me used to the idea of gaming a handheld, I was playing a bit of Hitman, which I picked up in the Steam sale. You know, I knew that that game runs really well, so I thought this would be a great game to get me into the swing of things, get me playing the Steam Deck, you know, getting used to longer gaming sessions, because previous sessions, they've just been maybe 20 minutes here and there, and then I'll take a break, have to go and do something, come back. So by having the deck, it was just going to be a longer experience having that. And there were some doubts. I was thinking, am I going to be able to hold it for that long? You know, is it going to become uncomfortable for me? These are questions people have. You see these accessories where there's a cushion and there's a stand for the deck or an iPad, whatever it is. I'm thinking, am I going to need to invest in one of them? After a few days of gaming solely on the Steam Deck, I was getting used to how it worked and tweaking settings, and leads me to my video on tweaking settings on the Steam Deck. So I will post a link to that somewhere on the bottom, so go and check that out if you haven't already. I was getting used to tweaking settings to get the most out of the deck, whether it was battery life or getting the most performance, depending on the game. Well, I've been gaming on the Steam Deck for a few days by now, and you know what really impressed me was that OLED screen. Yes, it's only 7.5 inches and 800p, but it's OLED with HDR, and games really pop. And one game that made me go wow was BioShock. That opening scene, if you've not played it, you must play them on the 360, and now playing on the deck is just another thing, because, you know, like I was saying, the OLED screen is just so gorgeous. You know, if you haven't gamed on an OLED, kind of missing out. Those dark, those perfect blacks really helps, and the colors pop a lot more. So Fire really like stood out, and the night sky was brilliant, and then going down into Rapture, it was like wow. For such a small screen, it packs a real powerful punch. I wasn't put off by the screen size. Perfectly fine, it's comfortable, it's not too big. I think if the screen was too big, it would really affect the, you know, the deck's comfort. I think Valve have done a good job with that. So I've been playing BioShock. Another game I was really getting into was Cyberpunk. Now, Cyberpunk's just one of them games that I don't know, I just can't get into. I first played it when it came out, and it was on Stadia. If you remember Stadia, fair play, but if you don't, Stadia was Google's entry into cloud gaming, and I was impressed by it, and Cyberpunk ran brilliantly on it. Got quite far in it. I think Stadia died and I didn't transfer my save. So I've tried playing on the Series X and the PS5, and yes, the game looks good. I just haven't been able to sink my teeth into it like I did on Stadia on the current gen of console. Whether that is time, because Cyberpunk now, heavy, you know, massive story. I thought, if I get it on the deck, am I going to play it more? So browsing my wish list the other night, and I noticed it was on offer, and it was something like 60% off. It was £17, and I thought, it's a sign, I gotta pick it up. So I did, I picked that up along with The Witcher 3. So Cyberpunk is a game that I am getting into, and I hope, you know, the more I game on the deck, the more I play. You know, was I missing the PS5 at this point? Maybe a little bit, and that's only because of Battlefield 6, you know, just wanting to play that. You know, I've become addicted to it. But the Steam Deck was, you know, allowing me to actually play games, because like I mentioned previously, I tend to just stick to multiplayer games. It was like FIFA, Call of Duty, and yeah, Battlefield. And I was missing out on so many great single player games, cozy games, indie games. My gaming experience was very narrow to just the same games day in, day out. And the Steam Deck has, you know, expanded my library and my gaming. So that is something that I'm thankful for. It might sound weird to say. The device has open my eyes to what other games are out there. So another game I've been playing on the deck was Hitman, and quite a heavy game in the sense of the amount of characters on the screen at times. And I was impressed by it. I wasn't expecting much on the deck, but that really blew me away. I was impressed with load times, how it played, how smooth it ran after a bit of tweaking. Yeah, it was like playing it on a console, no doubt about it. I was loving the quick resume as well. That made gaming a lot easier. I haven't got to turn the TV on, power on the console, game, and then when I come off it after maybe 5-10 minutes because some things needed to be done, I didn't then have to turn everything off. Literally, I just tapped the button on the deck and it jumped into sleep mode, and then I do what I need to do, come back, press the button, and back gaming again. Quick resume is such a brilliant feature of the Steam Deck. Okay, so day 5 rolled around and I had a few. This is just a handheld. And yeah, it was playing Cyberpunk. It has become a little bit frustrating for me, where when I first played it, it was smooth at 30 FPS, but I tweaked a few settings, and then even though I was getting 50, 60 FPS at times, the game just did not feel smooth, and it was a little bit frustrating. I'm thinking, how can I get it back to how it was? I'm using the deck preset settings and just trying to think, how can I tweak it again? If anybody's got any suggestions of how to run Cyberpunk the best on the Steam Deck, please let me know in the comments down below. Somewhat it's put me off playing the game. You know, I want to play the game in the best possible way on the deck. Something else I discovered whilst having the Steam Deck as my only gaming device was I was having to charge it a lot more. You know, I knew I wasn't going to get massive play times out of it. You know, I wasn't going to be getting 4 or 5 hours, but an hour and a half here and there, 2 hours on a game, you know, I was charging it a lot more. So that's when you do realize it is only a handheld and the battery isn't the biggest compared to devices like the ROG Ally X. You know, that's understandable. And I am lucky in the fact that where I tend to sit in the evenings, I've got a power socket near me. So yeah, you know, it's a bit of a first world problem. I've got to sit close to a power socket. It's not a huge deal for me, but it was a little bit of an annoyance. Something else that became a bit annoying was the fan. So if I was playing something intensive like Cyberpunk or, you know, Hitman, I was having to turn the volume up on a little bit more just to compensate for the noise coming from the fan. And FYI, the vents still have that Steam Deck smell. I thought it was waning, but no, they're still there. So that's good, you know, that they're standing the test of time. Another thing I had to do was juggle my storage a little bit more. So I've got the 512 gig version, and I've also got a 512 gig micro SD cards on the deck. But bigger games, like, you know, like Cyberpunk and The Witcher and Hitman, they need more space. I was more focused on playing, you know, the more modern games. So I deleted all of my older ROMs like Rogue Squadron, Simpsons Hit and Run, and I wanted to free up the space. I am one of those who just can't play through one game at a time. I hop from game to game. But I'm playing Cyberpunk, I'm playing Hitman, and then I'm back on Portal 2. And if you haven't played Portal 1 or 2, you are missing out. They are great puzzle games, and again, they are simple games. Levels can be, you know, if you know what you're doing, 3 minutes long, so they're perfect pick up and play levels. And, you know, if you haven't already, I fully recommend checking that out. Something that did surprise me with the Steam Deck was how well some of the non-Steam Deck verified games played. So I picked up a Star Wars bundle off CD Keys, and I wanted the bundle because it had the Knights of the Old Republic games, which I really wanted to get into, and it had some older games like Jedi Outcast. These games I can remember playing on the Xbox and, you know, loving them. And yeah, playing that on the deck, it was great. The nostalgia, I keep saying nostalgia with this deck, and it was really good. And I thought, I can't do this with my PS5. I'm looking at it now and thinking, yeah, you can play the latest and greatest, but sometimes you want to take it right back, and Steam Deck was doing that for me. Day 7 rolled around, and was I glad that I spent, you know, 7 days gaming on the deck? Yeah, I was. The best thing about it was that, like I've mentioned earlier in the video, that it opened my eyes to all these different kinds of games that I've not touched previously. And I've really enjoyed getting into these games. Yes, some games have been nostalgic, but others, oh wow, that's actually a really good game. You know, games like Suit for Hire, I wouldn't have picked that up if I didn't have a Steam Deck. The Steam Deck I've got to thank for that. And the community as well, because, you know, I've seen these games advertised and thinking, yeah, I'll get that. If it wasn't on the deck or if it wasn't on Steam, I wouldn't play it. It's been a good experience for me. I'm really pleased that I've done. Yes, there have been drawbacks, like Cyberpunk didn't run too great. Fan noise was quite loud in certain games, but in the big picture, these are minor gripes, because, you know, these are handhelds, you know, and they are great, and they're only going to get better. Yes, the Steam Deck 2 will be a few years away yet, as, you know, Valve have said. They are waiting for a bigger improvement. You know, they're not going to do these yearly releases like a lot of these handheld manufacturers are doing. They want to have a big enough jump in performance and battery life to actually make the deck worth it, and fair play to them. My library's growing with the Steam Deck, so it's grown and it's only going to get bigger, and I think that's the great thing about the Steam Deck, is that like the Switch or the PlayStation Portal, PS5, you're not just tied into one ecosystem and maybe current gen, and maybe the Steam Deck compared to devices like the PlayStation Portal or the Switch 2, you are tied into an ecosystem. And I'm not really becoming a fan of that. Can I see myself using the deck more and more? Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm enjoying playing these single player games. Like I've said, I've got The Witcher 3 to play. You know, I wanted to play that, and I'm looking forward to it on the deck. It's a comfortable device. So, you know, I am thinking maybe I'll get some more accessories for the deck if I'm going to be spending more time playing it. And one of those is a dock, which I've seen, you know, around £20 from JSOX. That's how you pronounce it. And, you know, that will allow me to hook my deck up to a screen. With it being on a screen, I'll have better sound. Picture will be upscale, so games will look better. And with that, I was going to pick up a controller. I was looking at the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C. I've seen it become highly recommended. You know, if you've got a Steam Deck or you are thinking about buying a Steam Deck, I would definitely try this. You know, 1 week with just one device. You're generally going to learn what, you know, the deck's strengths and weaknesses are, and then by knowing that, you'll get the most out of it. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button, because I will have new Steam Deck videos every week. Drop your questions or any challenges down below, and I will get back to you. I do reply to everyone. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, Valve.